Welcome back to Hippie Bliss Travel. Today we're heading inside because you see we're getting a little rain. I think this is day three of, was that first round of atmospheric pressure that came through a while ago. And we were good talking about going hiking, but we're like, with all the rain. And we were joking about maybe going out to the Tillamook area. And glad we didn't because that's where a lot of the flooding happened. Our daughter at the time was still interning at the hospital in Seaside and several of her coworkers lived down by the Tillamook area. And I think her boss said that the water level came up to her wheel wells, and she has a full size pickup. And another one of her coworkers had to call out because, well, she didn't drive a full size pickup, and the flooding was too great for her to get to work. So instead, we came down to just on McMinnville, and there is the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. And for any history buffs, it's got the Spruce Goose in it. So my husband came down to this museum once years ago with the one of the kids. And there's multiple buildings here, and there's one you see with the big 740, the big plane on the roof. I think it's a 747. Used to be a water park. I think it still is a water park. It's got like a wave pool, and you climbed up to the airplane on the roof, and that was the start of the water slide. So we were there, I don't know, what was it, probably 10 years ago with the Girl Scout troop with the girls. That's how it was set up then. I'm assuming it's still that building is still set up as the water park. It's this first building on our left with the plane on top. And then there's the aviation part with the old planes, and they have a lot of old planes. We're heading in and we'll take a peek today. And then across the parking lot is the space one, where they have a lot of the uh, spacecraft that they have. They've restored a lot. It's just a big history day in the rain as we're heading in to the Aviation Museum. So the Evergreen Museum here is a nonprofit museum. It's got, what did it say, over 150 aircraft, spacecraft, and exhibits. And the most famous one it has is, of course, the Spruce Goose. So the cost was $24 an adult to get in, and then the tour of the Spruce Goose was an extra 25 a person. So that'd be putting us right around $100. But then they had a what do you call it? A membership for a year, and that was $83, and that included, one person got in, and you could bring a guest every time, and two free tours, like two tickets to tour the Spruce Goose for free. So we went membership route because it was cheaper that way. Yeah, this is early December, so they're decorated with Christmas lights. A lot of the planes are. They moved one of the planes that they're restoring out, and they put in a little ice rink that's open on the weekends through Christmas, I think. And then they were going to remove the ice rink and bring one of the restoration planes back in. This is different than what I thought, but kind of cool too. So you guys didn't go in the Spruce Goose last time?
We'll start here early flight.
Early flight? Okay. Snoopy! Snoopy is in the museum.
Of course, you could ask the same. Imagine being a passenger in one of those MASH helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
You're not actually inside the helicopter. You're just strapped in a basket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This would be like a stunt plane today.
It's just, yeah. When we checked in and we paid the membership fee and we were going to do the tour of the Spruce Goose, they signed you up for a time. I think it was like every 20-30 minutes they had a little tour. There is numerous volunteers here. Most of them are former military men themselves. They do all the tours. They know all the history, a detailed history of everything that we were asking questions on. And so, yeah, we signed up with, this is us just walking around. We had like 20-30 minutes before our tour of the Spruce Goose time. And yeah, my husband said there's a lot more planes now than when he was here. Was it maybe 8-10 years ago when he came?
Or do these two, the helicopter and the plane, both feel a bit like...
And they got little signs to tell you all about the plane, the history of the plane.
The kids are beginners.
Some of them are a history of famous pilots that flew these planes. And just a wow. One of those moments you just kind of walk around going, wow. You don't realize the history until you see it in like this. And then learning that Bessie Coleman, being a woman, African American and Native American mixed, couldn't learn to fly in the United States. Took some French classes so she could fill out an application in French and went to France and learned how to fly. And here's the main attraction. What we came for was the Spruce Goose. Yeah, it starts with you can watch a little video sitting outside. It was like 15 minutes, and we watched some of it before we went in.
Cruised at 90 miles an hour during the second taxi test when Eager and Wisman began filing their stories, but they were too eager. Hughes wasn't finished. Catching the media and a crowd on the way. B-17 Flying Fortress signaled the beginning of the procession across Highway 18. The vertical tail came first, followed by the right and left wings, each spanning a distance wider than the 5-lane highway. As the tail and wings slowly made their way around the bends toward the new facility, the flying boat's fuselage began the track, dwarfing the buildings it passed. The fuselage entered the hangar on September the 22nd and was lowered into its 7-foot pit a week later. Reassembly of the wings occurred on November 15th, followed by the vertical tail on November 20th. The pylons were assembled on January 25th, 2001, and crews attached the 8 Pratt & Whitney R4360 engines to the flying boat.
After seeing some of the history of the plane, then we headed up the stairs and headed into our tour. And this is inside the cargo area is what it would have been.
If you want to go over there, you can see more of what we're talking about. Now this has a solid nose up here for testing, but a working version of this would have had a clamshell door here that would have opened side to side for loading and unloading. And this stuff would not be here. And that fire suppression system that you saw was going to be down below. Used to be all cargo area. Now this up here is an auxiliary hydraulic system. 4 of the engines on the wings have hydraulic pumps. The others have electrical generators. So for testing and operating the flaps and ailerons and rudder and everything, instead of starting the engines on the wings that have the pumps, the hydraulic pumps, and propellers, which would have tried to move the airplane around, they installed this as an auxiliary hydraulic system for testing only.
Okay.
Okay?
So just like looking at every line had to be run by hand and yeah, with the and then no computers. You're like, how?
No. I'm not even sure that they had calculators then. If they did, it was certainly mechanical type.
Yeah, looking at these like wires and tubes, and you remember the no computers helped them, and they was
You gonna take a picture of that guy? So up here, this is called the flight deck. Now these seats were for reporters.
Okay.
And on a working version, there would have been seats also here for a backup. There would have been,
Yeah, coming up is a door that walked out. That walks. Yeah, this goes out to the wings. There's room enough you could walk, stand up upright, and walk out there. They've tried to keep as much as everything original.
we have coffee, of course, radio operator. And up to the right, there's two flight engineers that sit there.
Oh, two. Okay.
That's right. Maybe I'll, oops. And down below us, mentioned Howard's air supply tube. That's it right there.
Right, that one.
And that would pivot around, of course, and that's his air.
You can get up
You're
there.
welcome to go up the steps if you like and check out the cockpit and take pictures. If you'd like me to take pictures of both of you together, I can do that too. Take your time and hang on to something.
Oh yeah.
No hurry at this point.
Yeah, these stairs between the flight deck and the cargo hold were a little tight to get tight and narrow, but it's a plane, so you figure they were. And then as we were heading out, this is right at the opening. This is how thick the lining is to the outside hull. And I think if I remember right, they said this was balsa wood. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I'm counting 9 layers of balsa wood thick, it looks like they would laminate another section on, and how much stronger, but that is the thickness of the hull. Yeah, here's the tail section.
just the sheer number that fit under one wing of the Spruce Goose.
And it's not like there's, I mean, yeah, they're not necessarily like jumbo jets,
They're not
but
little.
in general, they're not small.
Yeah.
I'll admit, after a while, the planes started all blurred together because you're like, oh, this is like the style we see in like MASH, or this is we see them in these military movies, and that's kind of more how I related to them. But my husband, being an engineer, he said he could have stood there and looked at every plane for an hour at a time, just in finding the mechanics on how everything worked. I just like the history aspect. So if you're a military person, a history lover, an aviation lover, come check this museum out.
Remember watching the Top Gear episode we were watching with the super old cars?
Yeah.
They're running motors like this in those cars.
All these planes just dwarf compared to the Spruce Goose.
Right, but when you walk next to each of them, they're big.
Yeah.
But compared to the Goose, they're just minuscule. They said every engine on the Goose had what, 26 cylinders?
I think so.
It's insane. 26 cylinders times 8.
Yeah.
We learned about Jesse Leroy Brown. Brown. He was the first African American aviator to complete the United States Naval Basic Flight Training Program. They do have a large corner with the restoration projects in progress. It looks like they have multiple planes working. They did have one outside that they had to move for the ice skating rink. And then they had another plane here that looked like you could tour, and they had another volunteer. And this plane was used by American Airlines and then United Airlines. It didn't fly over 10,000 feet. There's no insulation. It turns out the hull of these ships is just the thin piece of metal, so they had to keep them under 10,000 feet. And this was plane that used in flight. And the way it was parked, it was at an incline, so to walk up to the cabin, it was a little hike there. It almost felt like. But yeah, and again, I know that another volunteer took us in and told us all about the plane. I think there was more volunteers there at one point than there were actual people visiting the museum. And then they had these the plane seats. That's kind of where you sat, like rest areas. They had them around where you could sit down like a bench. And I thought it was cool. And you even noticed the little cigarettes. It gives you know how old these seats were by the little cigarette thing. Yeah, we don't know what it is. there is a second level up here, but it's more like an overview look of the main
More
floor down
history.
here, and it gives you a size of the Spruce Goose and the surrounding areas, and then again there's some more historical things up here. And then what was interesting is they had a history of the flight attendants' uniforms up here from different eras that we're going to come to in just a moment. And another plane right above us.
Current.
At some point, their flight uniform included go-go boots.
That's got to be the 1970s. You know that, right? Or 1960s.
I'm willing to bet they were happy to move on from that one.
A new exhibit coming soon. I think we're done with building number 1.
Like, I don't know what kind of movies they run or what it costs to go see one.
Oh, we may have to test it out one day. So this is the aviation. Now we're going to the space.
This is the building all the way across. You see Neptune is right there. And as you walk,
Well, I think I'll wrap up this video here with the aviation history, and we'll head to the space history next week because there is so much history here. If you ever get a chance to come and you're in the McMinnville area and you get a chance to come see this, there's a lot of volunteers that are former military members that are a plethora of information and are willing to answer questions and know just about everything in this. So I want to say thank you for watching Hippie Bliss Travel. If you history buffs made it to the end, give us a like and a subscribe. And I hope to see you next week when we head to the Space Museum. See you then. Bye.